And there's two tabs on the bottom there, one for the
Yeah.
legal budget and one for the salary. Any other questions about the budget proposal?
Nope.
Trey, is there a motion that you need on this draft, or?
Were we going to speak to the membership fees as well, or?
Sure. So that's a different question. The
Okay.
structure of how we raise those is something that I have a new proposal for.
I know we talked about this last year too, and we
We
didn't
did, yeah.
we didn't move because of where things were at.
Right. So I came up with a fairly complex calculation last year. This year I've got a more simpler one. Basically, to raise the amount with our traditional method, we would have an across the board 3% increase. That would get us to $228,000. But if we want to kind of go towards something that's more tied to population, which there seemed to be a lot of support for last year, we could do a variable one. So I've got here on the spreadsheet the 3-year average of population for each member. And this is the year prior average of 3 years. This is the next year up to the current year 3-year average. And this is the percentage of each member as a fraction of the total 100% SAGE population for the prior year and for this current year.
So
and this is the change of that
when
difference.
we're looking at the 3-year average,
Mhm.
there's 3 lines for public with the same amount of people but different amount of dollars. The 3 yellow ones are goldenrod, it's 750 to, no, there's actually 4, 750 to 2K, 2000.
Those are the population figures
Oh, so those are the
for the average for that
actual
member.
library.
Oh, if you
Okay.
look on the far left column, it has the library name.
Oh,
The
thank
second
you.
column with the
Sorry.
colors is the category they fall
Okay,
into.
thanks.
So yeah, let's look at your example, Kathy. The Oregon Trail, your average was 99.81.
Uh-huh.
It's increased to 10.354. So your proportion of percentages, a fraction of the total SAGE population increased by 2.6%.
Okay.
So that would be a,
So the way we might do a new structure is to multiply what we would charge you, that 3%
Mm-hmm.
increase, times the change in your population. So if your
Percentage of
population
change.
goes
Okay.
up or goes down, that's going to affect your billing.
Okay.
So in your case, it's going up.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we're adding that 2.6 onto the 3%. So your fee would actually increase 5.7%
Okay.
because your population is growing. And the logic is that your population is growing, you should be getting more money
That
into
would be
your
the
revenue.
logic. It's not always true, but that's the logic.
So that, like I say, it goes up and it goes down, and that gets us away from the standard tiers that can really make no sense when you jump from one tier to the next.
For sure.
So each year we go
Thanks.
forward, those are continue to get.
Thanks for explaining that in more detail for me.
Sure. So some libraries, their percentage actually is going to go down. So looking at the top, the Adams Library, they paid $13.33 this year. They would have paid $13.74, but they're paying a little bit less than that. They're just going to increase 2.2%. I've got the base fee for ILL members at $4.24. They would have paid $4.12, and that's a 6% increase because basically because of the average increase of the two new PERS figures is 6% for those two. So that would make sense to keep that tied to be increasing at some degree, and that's how I came up with that figure. So I think with this quite drastic new structure, this should go to a general membership vote. It's not something we need to take a vote on today, but we can vote on by email whether we want to go with this across the board 3% increase or the variable structure.
When you look at it, can you point out which ones will have the highest and which ones will have the lowest with the variable?
Yeah, that didn't, the highest and lowest highlights didn't translate up to the Google Docs version. Let me get back to my original. Okay, so you can see here the green cells are the biggest increases.
Okay.
Hermiston's got 5.5.
Hermiston High School, but that's a 6. This is flat for those. Okay.
That's, yeah. Actually, I didn't update any of the populations on the schools.
Okay.
We didn't have that available, and this year I don't think it makes sense to change it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So LeGrand is one of the highest, 5.1. Oregon Trail, 5.7.
Yeah.
And Union, surprisingly, 5.2.
So Oregon Trail is the highest.
Yeah, looks like it, 5.7.
Yeah, it's not unexpected based on our population change. Okay.
So that's, like I say, it should be a separate vote that goes out to the general membership by email, whether we want to do the flat rate or the variable rate structure. But we can vote on approval of the basic budget today.
I hear a motion.
I move we vote on, we approve the basic budget as presented. Is that how I need to word it?
Do we need to make a motion about Beth's as a separate component?
I don't think so.
Well, as presented would include the maximum.
Hers is included in the budget, so
Yeah.
typically, no, you do not need to do that.
Okay. Well, I mean, he presented a couple different options for how to
Right.
format it. I wasn't sure which one he incorporated in the actual budget in front of us right now. That was the COLA and step
The
increase.
step. Mhm.
Correct, right.
That would be the one that I would want to motion for. so-
And that is included in this budget you presented.
Okay. Well, in that case, I will second your motion.
Thank you.
Do you have any further discussion? If not, let's do a vote. I believe we still have a quorum. I don't think we need to do a roll call on this one specifically. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing no hands, hearing no voices, I will assume our voting is unanimous in favor of the budget. Thank you,
Thank you.
Eric. appreciate your work on the budget as usual.
Just what kind of sense is there for the variable rate structure? Does that
I think the
something you
variable
wanna
rate
do?
structure that you've created is I like it. It's more equalizing.
Yeah, me too.
Perry, I know one of the things that came up previously was the whole issue of population and schools versus publics versus academics and how our populations are different. Do you feel like we've addressed that at this point, or is that something that still needs to be reviewed as well?
This is still a far cry from getting schools, especially the university members, to a fee structure that's based on their population. They're still, this is still based on our tier structure that we set up, which is quite different. So we're still a ways away from that.
Hey, Perry.
Yes.
LeGrand, and I don't know where the discussion needs to happen, but we need to discuss what LeGrand's service population is now that we have non-resident memberships. Our real service population is just the city of LeGrand, though the residents who live outside of a library service area, the 8,000 or so people, are eligible for a library card from one of the 4 libraries in the county. They choose which one they want at that point. So I don't know where that, our population is like 13,200, then there's that 8,000 that's eligible for some library services from one of these 4 libraries. So I don't know how that affects what our population actually is.
So we use the figures that are reported on the state library report. So if that changes, that's what we'll use. I did find in doing the historical information, this 2016-17 year, there were some really nonsensical variables. Enterprise that jumped up to 3,200, and Gillum to 1,000. So
I wonder if they are including the outlying areas. And also, doesn't Hermiston have some outlying areas of Umatilla County?
Well, Hermiston has areas that we serve that are part of the district, but those are pretty well defined by the state library, and those have not.
So those are included in your statistics. I don't see how Gillum jumped up to 1,000. That's
Well, and Enterprise was at over 3,000 and the county library closed and our numbers went down. So I don't know what they used to figure that out.
So I adjusted those in those cases where it had a wild swing so that it made more sense, just because it was throwing off the calculation that I was trying to do.
That might have accidentally moved somebody into a budget category they have no business being in.
Yeah. So I guess, Kip, your question would go to the state library.
I'm waiting for Ross, and actually several people at the state library are discussing what the impact of our changes are on our numbers. So I don't really know what the state's going to tell me. For most things that I report just the city's population now. So, but Sage is a bit different in that they, no matter where you live in the county and you choose a card here, you have access to Sage. So I don't know if what our number ends up being will matter to Sage or not.
Kip, I would think it would depend largely on how many non-resident cards you actually get purchased. I think the majority.
Well, that's where it gets tricky, is if you live outside of LeGrand not in Union Cove or Union North Powder or Elgin, you're eligible for a free basic service library card, which means you can borrow books and attend programs, and that's about it, and get access to library to go, since that's at this point a basic service. So those people are going to get a free card. If they want streaming services and all of the other products that cost us a lot of money, then they have to buy a membership. So it's all kind of tricky.
So we'll just continue to use the state library reports as a basis for our calculations.
Okay.
So whenever you work out with them, that's what we'll use.
Okay. I'm just trying to be troublemaker.
Let me see if we've answered all the questions that I have notes on here. Yes. Okay, that's all I have.
I believe we're at the last item on our agenda then. Annual SAGE meeting.
Typically we've tried to meet in person
Right.
in May or June. I don't know what the folks think about that happening this year. Whether we want to do a special meeting or just have it be a regular SAGE meeting.
You know, one of the things that I've realized this last year is that we've all learned how to do telemeetings much better than we used to. And I think we're more comfortable with that in some ways. I think there is absolutely benefit in one-on-one meeting. I'm wide open to the notion that we not at this point, in part because we're one that's very different. It becomes difficult for all of us to meet. It's much simpler for all of us to meet this way, considering the distance that we would have to cover to meet otherwise. I guess I'd like to propose that that our annual meeting be an online meeting. Not that we cancel the notion of ever doing a group meeting again, but with it being a little bit on the iffy side later this summer, and the distances that would have to be covered, and that we are all much more comfortable with this format than we were a year ago. Any comments or concerns about that?
I think that's a good suggestion.
Once we all get vaccinated, I think we can schedule a in-person meeting.
I'm there. The VA called me, and so I said, sure. So I think there's a couple of my staff that are, so I'm hoping some of you are as well. Or at least number one. Kathy.
I put
I got
myself
number
on
one in February, the 26th. So that was cool.
Right.
I put myself on the wait list with the local organization that's doing it here, and I think they called me and tried to let me know that they had an opening the other day, but I missed the call. So
What I think we're seeing here in Hermiston is that the hospitals and the pharmacies are using who's on their list regardless, because they don't want to lose any of their vaccine, which I don't have an issue with, but unfortunately, it doesn't give me any great confidence.
In Morrow County, you can get it at the clinic or at the pharmacy now, but they also have, the public health department has an online registration Google Doc that you just fill out, and they call you up, when it's your turn, and they call you in advance and schedule you. And so they scheduled my husband, and then he's taking my wife come, and they're like, well, sure, have her come along and see if we have any. And people had canceled that day, so they fit me in. And then they called the next week because I was on the list, and they're like, oh, and I said, oh, I already got it last week. So they're being really organized. They have it set up as a drive-through, and I was quite impressed with their organization skills.
I'm impressed with the local actions as well. I
Yeah.
don't feel like I have a sense of where we're at from a state level or anything. But that's not the point here. I guess I would recommend to each of you that figure out how to get your name on a list. You might get through earlier than you expected. And, you know, I feel like as long as people are getting the vaccinations, we're making progress. So
Some library districts and city libraries within the state have managed to convince their health departments that they are considered essential workers. So that
Yeah.
is an option to reach out and see if you can do that.
I tried to convince them that we should be counted with the education folks, but and they called Salem. I mean, they took me very seriously and called Salem, and Salem said no. So I'm not on the list.
In the questionnaire for signing up on the waiting list, they had occupation, and none of them fit, of course, but they did have IT. I figured, well, I manage quite a lot of public access computers, so I'm going to put IT.
there you go. Are any of you getting requests from customers to help with those Google forms and things like that?
Yep.
That's the thing that throws me. There's a lot of people that we serve that don't have any kind of access and wouldn't be
We've
able
shared
to.
it on our social media and on our website, and we definitely have people need help filling it out. And I was just talking to my neighbors last night, and they got in for theirs last Friday, the 12th, and because they're agricultural essential workers. And they said that the health department told them they're not having as many people over 65 filling out the Google Doc. So that is something that
They
is
put up
not
an unrealized block to people over 65.
Mhm.
And if that's the only way they can do it, there's a lot of them that will never do it, whether they'd like the vaccine or not.
right.
Well, are there other matters to bring before the board at this point, or the group?
Can I ask one more thing about the ILLs with the schools?
Sure.
So some of the schools pay, and they are part of ILLs, and they come into their building. The materials do, and then they ship out. Is it through the mail or somehow through the courier? Our schools don't do that. They just order them through the library, and come here and pick them up. So I'm curious why some schools make that decision to do it just in the school.
Well, it depends on whether they're a member of SAGE. They've elected to be SAGE members and pay for that individualized ability.
Yeah, I was just wondering about that because, you know, ION's pretty small. They could just, if they choose not to be part of SAGE anymore, they could just work with the ION library and get their ILLs that way.
Yeah, and truthfully, that's probably more cost effective for them because of the limited number of ILLs that they do. So that could be a discussion I could have with them. Because unless they're doing a lot of ILLs and seeing an increase of resources for their students, it does make sense just to have the students borrow through their local ION public library.
Well, and we've even had the teachers contact us and say, oh, hey, we need, 15 copies of whatever.
Yeah.
ILLs. And so, yeah, I was just curious about that. Thanks for answering that.
No, that's fine. And North Powder School goes through the North Powder Library for things like that, for multiple copies that they need for classrooms.
And Kip, LeGrand set up so all the kids in the school districts have library cards now. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I don't think, because of COVID and the timing, I don't know that the school district really helped roll it out properly. So I think we'll give it a better shot in the fall. But yes, right now everyone potentially has a digital card.
And while Ryan's on the line, if you're still there, I saw yesterday that on Overdrive we now have access to magazines. That's pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think
And-
that's something that's been there for a little while, but a lot of
Yeah,
people
maybe a
didn't-
week or so.
Yeah.
And does that, do you ever have to place a hold on our magazine, or are they instantly available?
Don't know. That's not something they've ever actually addressed. I assume it's probably similar to the way the book licensing works, but
Okay.
I can
Um,
I'm glad
I
that,
can
I
speak
don't
to
know.
that.
It's RB Digital's
Right.
platform, so it's the magazine is always available.
cool.
You download it, you keep it, it's yours.
Yeah, we have RB Digital really limited that we offer, but we're not gonna offer that anymore. I was
Yeah, I
just
need
glad to
to
see that they added it to ours.
I have Flipster, so I need to not renew that.
Yeah.
I can tell you from the Montana Overdrive, because I don't use Oregon because I live in Montana, that they've added it, but you can look at it at any time, but it's only online. It's not a downloadable thing. It's only online, and you can get it anytime.
that's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because RB Digital does have a download option, so that's interesting that that's that way.
Well, and given how graphically intensive a magazine is, you wouldn't want to be browsing that on a
No, you delete them pretty
data
quick.
plan device anyway, if you're just streaming it. I feel like weird.
I want to add that to the discussion that Beth and I have made, well, and my staff have made progress on online payment through the catalog with the PayPal service. We had successful transactions, so if you want to enable that, it's near realization.
No, that was with PayFlow Pro, right, Perry? So not
That's
a
what we
little bit
use, right?
different, a little bit different than PayPal itself. We were trying to get it to work for Hood River. So Rachel, let's give that another go now that we've had some success with PayFlow Pro, which is also a PayPal service. See if we can get it working for Hood River. But yes, anyone who wants to turn that on, we're happy to work with you.
Good to hear.
The city made us get a credit card machine, and now we have to figure out how to use it. They came and gave us a lesson, and then we closed for forever, and now nobody remembers how to do it anymore.
We use Square.
I don't know what the city's is. It looks just like the machines in half the fast food drive-thrus in the area, though. So
We have a card reader and an online service, so it's not, I don't think it's terribly complicated, but I don't do it myself, so.
Well, that's the point of sale rather than
Yeah.
patrons paying through there.
Definitely. I like the idea of turning it on so people can pay at home if they want.
Yeah. Anything else to address? Beth, are you satisfied that we know where we're all going and onward into the fog and everything?
I do. I may send out an email to the listserv asking what folks want to have happen at the annual meeting. Typically, we give a report of how the year has gone, and then we do a little bit of planning for the upcoming year. But since we're doing it online, I guess I just want a sense for what folks want to have happen at that annual meeting, so I have some direction.
I'm gonna have to bring snacks to get the full experience.
That's true. We typically have provided food. Now you're all on your own.
Yeah.
Just for informational purposes, I realized once we got to the discussion of the possible new member structure be that we weren't recording. So a lot of the meeting is not going to be recorded.
Mm.
So I'm going to try and actually do the minutes right after this meeting so that it's fresh in my mind, and you all can help fill in the gaps with anything that I've forgotten since I don't have a recording to go back to. The later half of the meeting is recorded, but I'm not sure whether that's adequate to really put out there for folks to get a full sense for the meeting.
Okay. The ultimate jigsaw puzzle.
Woo. Well, happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. I'm not Irish, I'm Scottish and German and a few other things. So hope everyone has a good week ahead. And unless there's something more to talk about, I think we can, I suppose I could call for a motion to adjourn. Shall we all just hit the exit button at once?
We can make it official and make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
And
Bye, everybody.
all in favor?
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.